MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
What is up, my fantasy peeps? Long time no talk. My fantasy podcast is back after a bye week. And glad to be back. Thank you for joining us. We crowned a new NCAA basketball champion since our last show. We will wrap up March Madness and talk about the Final Four and that amazing championship game from 1 week ago. We're also a little bit closer to crowning a new NBA champion. The Warriors' record is still in play, and it all comes down to the last game of the regular season Wednesday night against none other than my Memphis Grizzlies. We'll also touch on the start of the MLB season, who is out to a hot start and who is not. Of course, we'll talk about the Masters and what some are saying was the most epic collapse in a major ever. Forever?
Outcast.
And we will also be introducing a brand new segment on today's show called My Fantasy Rant. In this new segment, we're going to take the gloves off and tell you exactly how we feel. The other guys are just going to shut up and let them go. So that will be fun and interesting. So stay tuned to the end of the show for that. All of that, plus more on today's show. So let's get into it. This is My Fantasy Podcast. It is Monday, April 11th, 2016. I am Brandon Reed, lead writer for MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Let me bring in the founder of MyFantasySportsTalk.com, Dan the Man Schalk. Real quick, Dan, this is not your fantasy rant time, but what do you think about the daily fantasy being banned in New York?
Well, I don't want to get into the way we work things, between me and you, Brandon, being in Arkansas and me being in New York. We won't get into that, but to say the least, I'm not too happy.
There's workarounds around everything, but yeah, just as a general rule, I know you're not real happy with that. But anyway, we'll digress. Maybe one day, Dan. Maybe one day you'll be back in the game.
It has to, right?
Yep, I think so. And now let's bring in the lead contributor for MyFantasySportsTalk.com. No one covers stuff like this guy. He's just all over the place, covering wrestling, entertainment, sports, whatever. He's your guy. It's Kyle Kirby. And Kyle, admit it, you can't wait till the My Fantasy Rant segment, can you?
I'm chomping at the bit, as they say. I'm very excited to talk about it. And guys, they say absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I'm feeling some fond feelings right now for the both of you. It's been a while.
That just makes me feel good inside.
See, that's what I'm trying to do. Lighten the mood before we argue, right?
It's not a Monday night without My Fantasy Podcast, I tell you that.
That's right.
So let's start out today's show with a little bit of sad news out of the NFL. Will Smith, former defensive end for the Saints, was shot multiple times and killed in a road rage incident Saturday night in New Orleans. Smith's wife, Raquel, was also hit by gunfire in the leg. She will be okay. The suspect, 28-year-old Cardell Hayes, has been arrested and is facing second-degree murder charges. Just senselessness all the way around, huh, guys?
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. It's awful. And Will Smith, by all accounts, was a leader on his team while he was playing. Kind of a fantastic player. A lot of records he had for the team. It's just a terrible thing to see happen for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't want to get too much into the whole gun violence and everything, but the way it happened, just road rage. I mean, I get road rage myself. Somebody cuts me off, I might tail them a little bit, put on a blinker and act like I'm following them, but I don't actually do that. And just to be able to pull a gun and end somebody's life is mind-boggling. And that it happened, just randomly out of nowhere. It makes you question what's going on.
Yeah, and it's scary. It's scary to think that something like that could end your life. I mean, it's just a Saturday night in New Orleans. You know, you get into a fender bender, and it ends up costing someone his life. And it's just scary to think that anyone could pull out a gun at any time and end your life. And apparently it wasn't just one shot. I mean, there was multiple shots. His wife got hit as well. Thankfully, she's going to be okay. But Smith also had a party of acquaintances in the vehicle ahead of him. This could have turned real bad. And the showing of respect and just the pouring out of sympathy over social media was really huge as well. You saw pretty much everybody in the league, everyone who had ties to New Orleans or the NFL or just in sports general, sending out their condolences on Facebook, Twitter, all of social media as well. So you could just tell how much this affected everybody throughout the league, throughout sports.
Yeah, I think everybody's jumping in, and rightfully so. I mean, I think everybody was shocked when they heard something like this could happen, and it's good to see. And I heard today that the Saints are going to put Will Smith in their Ring of Honor, so it's good that he's going to be honored for his on the field accomplishments. But it's sad that he won't be able to be there to witness it.
Yeah, and I hate saying this, but you would think and hope that every act like this eventually does bring a little bit more awareness of just people. I don't know, just awareness to the gun violence at all times, but also maybe if you could somehow think before that next time. A fender bender's not worth it. Try to keep the rage out of it. And Dan, like you said, it's hard, and I'm guilty as too sometimes because I have a low tolerance for stupid people that do stupid things. Seriously, I do. That sets me off more than anything. It's not something necessarily you do personally to me every time, but just witnessing stupid acts really pisses me off. And sometimes you may just have to think about it, ahead of time and realize what could come out of this. And a lot of times it's nothing good. But again, hopefully maybe this brings awareness and, I don't know, people will just think a little bit more. We say it after every time something like this happens, but, maybe next time we'll be a little bit more careful and something like this could be avoided. So let's move on. We'll stay in the NFL. And guys, I forgot to tell you, I am actually recording this podcast today from Von Miller's basement. I moved in with him.
Lots of room down there. Empty bed, right? There's an empty bed available.
Von Miller's got plenty of room. Super Bowl MVP, man. I'm just trying to get my life right, And I heard Von Miller's house is the place to do that. So I've moved in. Johnny's he's got the bunk bed ahead of me, above me. But seriously, if you didn't see this, another TMZ video, Johnny Manziel, his latest little escapade, you could say. He says he wasn't drinking, but you can't convince me of that. Johnny Manziel is caught on TMZ, actually kind of hijacked the camera for a second, turned it around, and from a video production standpoint, it was horrible camera work by Johnny, but kind of hijacked it. But the point of the story was he says he's behaving. He's actually living with Von Miller, and they're just trying to get their life right. Well, I think Von Miller's life is okay. He's the Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion. He's doing okay, and he seems to be fine. But anyway, he was also quick to point out that, hey, Johnny ain't living with me. The truth came out. Johnny's actually living with Josh Gordon, and so that's quite a stark contrast, is it not, guys? Von Miller to Josh Gordon. That could be an interesting household, could it not? Johnny Manziel and Josh Gordon. What's going on here?
I feel like this is the beginning of Dude, Where's My Car Part 2. And to be honest with you, if that is sober Johnny, what we saw in that video, man, I don't want to see any of drunk Johnny. I don't.
Nice try, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It was oh my God, what a joke, right? I mean, I feel like it's even hard to even talk about this because it's what other stance can you have other than this guy is an absolute joke? I mean, I think that's the only appropriate stance to have, right?
Well, this is a guy trying to get a job. You know,
Right,
it's
exactly.
not like he's got a solidified contract. He is trying to get a job.
And calling out the Broncos, I think the way he did, just saying John Elway, he's a smart guy and things like that. I mean, John Elway doesn't want his quarterback to be out at a bar, first of all, 5-6 days in a row.
That's the other part. That was kind of subtle in there. You had to pick up on that. He's like, "Hey, bro, you see me out here, 5-6 nights in a row, right? You need a straight week, Johnny."
I mean, it's mind blowing how. I mean, I was watching it and I couldn't look away, but it was cringeworthy. I'm like, are you attempting to do you want to be an NFL quarterback? And if so, you obviously have no idea of what you need to do is on the field or off the field to become one. And I know we're going to get to it, but getting into living with Josh Gordon, I mean, that's only going to become into a negative light. And it's Johnny, what are you doing?
But he also made a comment that I hope I'm taking the right way, but he made a comment on the video, something to the effect of anybody who he signs with now, it's going to be a blessing. I really hope Johnny, in his head, thinks that it's a blessing for him, because if he really thinks it's a blessing for the team that picks him up, if he really thinks that, then he's more far gone than I thought he was. But just his actions right now, man, this dude, he's not going to live up to the hype, is he?
And by the way, it's not going to be a blessing. If someone picks him up, it's going to be an effing miracle at this point, because I don't understand why anybody would take the chance on him. And to talk about the hype's going the opposite way now. I mean, the thing is that now he has to start to prove people wrong, and he's absolutely taken no steps in order to do that, which is discouraging. I don't see how this guy doesn't have one of the most just disappointing and just explosive in the wrong ways NFL careers ever. I just see it's got all the makings of just a terrible, terrible story with a sad ending.
Well, and the thing is that kind of proves that he's not trying to do better. And like I say, he admits to hanging out at the bar 5-6 nights in a row. And like, hey, bro, you see me. Man, that ain't the place for you, Johnny. I'm sorry. And I just kind of thought it was funny how Von Miller was quick to say, nah, dude ain't living with me. Please don't confuse me with Josh Gordon, okay? That's the truth. And speaking of the dude, where's my car reference? And then Josh Gordon failed a drug test. So the stories just go hand in hand, don't they? What do we think about this? What's going on?
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Josh Gordon on the football field. I loved watching him play. He's a superior talent, and I was thinking why he wasn't being reinstated into the league, because he had filed for his reinstatement a while ago now, and it's usually a 60-day process per league rules, and it's been beyond that. And now we found out he failed the drug test only a month or so ago, something with diluted samples and things like that. So you really you got to question where where his head's at, if he's going to be able to come back, but whether or not even Roger Goodell is going to let him back now, because it's in Roger Goodell's hands, and I don't, as a football player, you don't want your fate in his hands.
No, absolutely not. And I do want to make a comment on something, because I've seen a lot of conflicting opinions as far as this goes. I mean, there's always there's going to be this debate in this country about the legalization of marijuana as a general thing, and I understand that debate. I see both sides of it. At the end of the day, this becomes a matter of your employer saying you can or can't do something. And when you are repeatedly not doing the right thing, you're repeatedly breaking those rules, no matter what those rules are. I mean, if those rules are you can't put your elbows on the table at dinner, then you don't put your freaking elbows on the table at dinner. You follow the rules and you collect your millions of dollars is what you do. And he's consistently proving that he does not care about those things. He cares more about doing what he wants to do. And if that's what he wants to do, then he can find himself a nice comfy spot on his couch and watching the NFL season for the rest of his career.
Well, I think it just even a more simple level than that. Sometimes I just think it boils down to maturity. Some of these guys just aren't mature enough to be in the situation they are. we go back just a week or so ago, the whole deal with D'Angelo Russell and Nick Young, and from what I've heard, D'Angelo is just a very immature guy. Now, of course, I know he's only 19, 20, whatever he is, but there's a level of maturity, for each age, if that makes sense, what I'm saying, I guess, is I think that D'Angelo Russell may be even a really immature 20-year-old or very immature 25-year-old, and I don't know. I think Johnny's there. I just don't think he has it. And Josh Gordon may not either. I think sometimes it's just the individual, and guys like that won't last long in any professional sports league. If you don't have what it takes to be an adult and grow up and do grown-up things, then you're not going to be in the adult world very long, And I think that's maybe where we're at with Josh Gordon and Johnny Manziel living together. Woo. Man, talk about a reality show. That's what they should both do. Just give up football and just have that train wreck of a reality show for a while. Because, man, that'd be some good TV.
They're both going to need an income, so...
Yeah. I think so.
They'll get that primetime spot right after the Kardashians.
If I'm Cleveland, regardless of what Goodell says, I'm done. I'm so done. Like I was done with Manziel, and I kind of think Hugh Jackson is a no nonsense guy. I would be done. I would just absolutely be done. But also in the NFL, let's talk a little bit about Colin Kaepernick. He's still really kind of looking for a job, even though he has one. Denver's still trying to make that deal happen, but trying to undercut him a little bit. Not really giving him very much respect. Basically trying to pay him not a lot of money, which basically boils down to a backup salary. We've talked about this before, guys, but how is this Kaepernick situation going to end up? When the season starts, where is he going to be?
I have no idea. I really don't know how this ends because I don't see how he stays in San Francisco after all this. I mean, it's how do you keep him? How does this work for your team chemistry? How does this work with your new coach that you're trying to build a system or a culture in your actual locker room? It's not going to work with a guy like Kaepernick there who you've been shopping around and who clearly doesn't want to be there. As much as I wouldn't mind seeing the Chip Kelly experiment with a guy like Kaepernick, I think that would be interesting. I don't see how that works, and it seems like the Broncos aren't willing to pay him the money that he feels like he deserves. So this is a stalemate, and I don't see how it ends.
They were trying to pay him Chase Daniel money.
Right.
I think he's worth more than that.
I agree.
I think he's a starter in the NFL. He's not a back. I just think he needs a new change of scenery.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, if I were the 49ers, I know they are trying to shop him, but they're probably getting lowballed because Kaepernick, has voiced his displeasure. He wants out. But at the end of the day, the 49ers are locked in to pay that money. If Kaepernick wants that money, buck up and get paid and probably succeed a lot more than you did last year with Chip Kelly over, their previous regime. I know they were successful with Harbaugh, but I mean, at the end of the day, if Kaepernick wants the money that his contract is worth, then he's going to have to stay with the 49ers. And unless a trade for, I would say, a high round draft pick, it's not going to happen. I ultimately see him in San Francisco this season.
Yeah, and part of the problem with the first round of negotiations with Denver is they just really couldn't absorb his right at $12 million salary, but they did recently traded offensive tackle Ryan Clady to the Jets, so that freed up about $10 million, although Denver claims that there was absolutely no correlation between that trade and a potential deal with Kaepernick at all. So we'll see, but also something I find really interesting is that if this Kaepernick deal doesn't work out, the Broncos are really very much seriously looking at drafting a quarterback with the 31st overall pick, and from all accounts, is that man would be Paxton Lynch. Dan has a Paxton Lynch draft profile up on the site right now. It's been doing very well for us. He's attractive. Do you think that's worth the 31st pick or first round QB pick?
It's ultimately looking like that. I know I just brought out the Cowboys mock draft, and I had him going third overall in the second round. And the way the talk has been as of late, actually, as soon as I published that, it seemed to be like the Broncos. Okay, that's what they're going to be looking at is a quarterback at that spot. So yeah, I think that is a possibility. The only thing that would halt that is I can also see the Broncos going for maybe a Ryan Fitzpatrick with some of that cap money that they did clear up in the Clady deal. Fitzpatrick won't command as much as Kaepernick's salary, although he wants that. I think ultimately he's going to learn, he's going to have to settle. So I think that could be a destination for him closer to the draft. But yeah, I mean, if they don't end up signing him, then yeah, I definitely see him picking quarterback at the end of round one.
Well, and talk is that they really like Sanchez as well.
That's
what a change in quarterback from Peyton Manning to Mark Sanchez. I mean, it's crazy to think, but Mark Sanchez is probably a better quarterback than Peyton was last year. Just that thought, I can't imagine that's going to inspire much confidence in his teammates.
I wouldn't think so. For a top-notch NFL defense coming off of a Super Bowl, man, you go to the sideline and Mark Sanchez is under center for you. I don't know. I just wouldn't feel too great about it. But anyway, we'll put a bookmark in the NFL for this week and move on. You're listening to My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Brendan Reed, Kyle Kirby, Dan Schalk here. Let's talk about the NCAA tournament and wrap that up since we haven't got a chance to talk on what actually happened since our last podcast. It was, would you say, a lackluster Final Four on Saturday, a couple of blowouts. Villanova beat Oklahoma, just beat the brakes off of them, 95-51. And UNC handled Syracuse pretty good as well, 83-66. So before we move into the spectacular championship game, guys, what did we think about the round of four on Saturday?
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember much of it for those reasons. To be honest, it's been a while. All right, there's been a lot of sports and wrestling since then, so my mind has kind of pushed that information out of it, but.
Villanova saved me some time. I'll tell you that. Villanova saved me some time because the first score update, I didn't watch the whole thing live. First score update I got, they were well in hand. So I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch much of that game at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, just on that thought, the fact that both teams performed as well as they did immediately made me very excited for the championship game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Final Four is absolutely terrible. Garbage. I watched 10 minutes of the Oklahoma Villanova game, and I stayed into the Cuse one, being a New York native for a little bit, but it was ugly. It hurt the ratings. I would imagine, in second half numbers, TV wise, I'm sure millions of viewers were lost.
It's funny you mentioned that, Dan, because I did hear the numbers. I think they were down quite a bit from like a 12-point rating from the year before, like 17 or so. But don't be fooled by that. That had a lot to do with the Final Four and championship game finally being on paid television, and instead of being on CBS. Yep. So, I'm not quite buying those numbers. And, I'll be honest, the Final Four, you had a couple of blowouts. Maybe that didn't have the intrigue factor, but the championship game was awesome. So, don't quite buy the numbers of the dip in ratings just simply because of the move from CBS to TBS.
Yeah, agreed.
So we move on, and we got a pretty good championship game. Villanova and
pretty good.
UNC. Okay, it was the best one I've seen in a long time.
Yes.
It really was. And I heard a stat the day of the game, before the game, on North Carolina. North Carolina, for the season, was rebounding their misses 40% of the time, meaning they were getting offensive rebounds on their misses 40% of the time. throughout the whole season. That's
insane.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about the athletes they have, and they're getting the ball back damn near half the time they miss it. It's no wonder to see why they were doing so good. But I mean, they got the athletes. But I'll also say this about Villanova: no team was playing in the tournament like Villanova was through the whole tournament. They had a lot of blowouts. And I think they came close, maybe second or so, to setting like the all-time mark of point spread, or as far as margin of victory throughout the whole 6 games for a tournament. Just they heated up at the right time.
Yeah, they did. And you mentioned the rebounding. I think I'm looking at the box score right now, and it was significant, the rebounding advantage that North Carolina had over Villanova in the game, and they had 14 offensive boards to the two that Villanova had. But at the end of the day, you said they heated up, and it wasn't just that; it was just straight up efficiency. They were 58% from the floor, and North Carolina was about 43. So I mean, just looking at that tells you the whole story. I think.
Yeah, I mean, basically they were the two best teams in college basketball, and we got to see that collide. So I think the fans were treated to a show, and that did show. I mean, the last time I saw a championship game like that was when Mario Chalmers was draining a three against those Memphis Tigers. I had to bring it up. I had to bring it up, Brandon, because really, I mean, that was a great game too, and the ending reminded me a lot of it.
Well,
no, I was thinking the same thing, Dan. I was thinking the same thing because Memphis, if people don't realize, Memphis was up in that championship game by 9 or 10, but with only like a minute and a half to go. And Kansas stormed back, and we know how it ended. But yeah, I was thinking that game was looking just like that. And if North Carolina could have pulled it out and broke the hearts of Villanova, man, that would have been mirror images almost of those 2 seasons and 2 tournaments for Villanova and Memphis. But Villanova found a way.
yeah, I have memories, by the way. Also, talking about previous games, I have memories of that Gordon Hayward shot. I think that's another thing that everyone's been talking about. What team was that again? I guess again. I think it was Butler against Duke. Yeah, you're right, Duke.
Yeah, yep.
And that was another shot that could have gone down as one of the best of all time. And just to talk about the game, and I guess we can just talk right now about that ending sequence. Why not, right? Just an unbelievable ending sequence. I think we had 2 of the best shots ever in the history of the tournament.
The Page shot was crazy.
I mean, unbelievable, right? That double clutch and hit. I don't know how he got. I don't know how he made the shot. I'm still baffled.
It'd be pure strength. I mean, that was mind blowing.
Yeah, truly.
And you can't teach that.
Dan, you won't understand that. I'm sorry. It's all right.
A lot of our listeners will, especially if you've been listening to Book That, our new wrestling podcast, just to give that a little plug real quick. But I mean, yeah, that was just nuts. And if he tried that 19 other times, that would have been the only time that he did that.
Right. Yeah. And that's it. Right. I mean, it just what an incredible that shot. I mean, I can only imagine. I think it can all be summed up in the face of one Mr. Michael Jeffrey Jordan on the sideline during that whole sequence. I mean, he that raised fist in the air after that Page shot. The kind of summed up the emotion for Carolina fans, and then we all know what happened after that.
Well, on the final play, the final sequence, I want to give Archdiakono a whole lot of credit because, a lot of times you'll see guys dribble length of floor like that and throw up a bad shot. And plus, he was the shooter. He was the guy, and I think North Carolina felt like that as well, that he's going to be the guy to fire up the shot. But he just had the presence of mind to just turn around and flick it to the guy behind him, even though it was a little bit longer shot. Chris Jenkins had a much better lined-up look for it. And, man, he drilled it. And I'm not sure that I've seen a team shooting performance as well as Villanova did through the whole tournament like I saw that. I mean, it was almost Golden State-like. They were just very efficient. And I think even during the championship game, I could be totally off about this. Maybe it was the Final Four game, but I think they were shooting like 60-something% at halftime. That's insane. That is just insane for a high-level, competition college basketball game.
Yeah, it was the play. Archdiakono, I mean, he's just a true winner and leader of that team, and I think he showed it by having the moxie to pass the ball. But I also wanted to bring up Jay Wright's reaction when the shot went in. I think
Yes.
that was true boss. I mean, that was awesome. Just the way he reacted afterwards, it just made me love him even so much more as a coach.
Talking about onions, right? How about those onions?
Well, he totally expected to win, and when you got a team like he did, it's easy to see why he had that confidence. And man, but they almost blew it, did they not? They almost blew it. I mean, they had a nice, comfortable 10-point lead, and almost blew it. But man, I really thought we were going into overtime after that Page shot, but it set up probably one of the best finishes ever in college basketball in a national championship game.
Yeah, and real quick too, I do want to make this comment. I mean, you can't. It's hard to criticize Carolina after what was really that amazing final shot, but their defense on that final play. I mean, no one spotted up on the inbounder on the actual play. I watched it a couple times, and this. It was clear everyone was putting themselves right onto Arcidiacono, which was probably the smarter thing to do, but not one person started to move out to actually spot up on Jenkins, and he had the easiest look he could have ever had in that situation. I mean, it was perfect to having him come in front of the actual come in front of the players to kind of set a little bit of a pick, but no one spotted him up. He walked down completely unimpeded down the entire court and had that look, and that Good play design, but they could have been a little bit better defense, I think, from Carolina. Could have finished that whole Cinderella story in that game.
And just real quickly to wrap up the conversation and put a bow on the 2015-2016 college basketball season, Villanova comes in. I'm not sure if you guys seen this on the ESPN's way too early preseason rankings, and I don't know how much stock you put in this at all, because I mean we had no longer or just finished the championship game before they're already putting out a poll. But Villanova ranked number 2 in the way too early ESPN polls for next year, so expected to be right there. Any guesses on who's number 1, guys?
No.
Kentucky.
Close. They're 3. Duke is number 1.
Oh yeah, they have a nice class coming in with and Grayson Allen Stan. I can see that.
That's right, but I mean, aren't they probably always top 1 or 2? I mean, if you're talking about way too early, I think Duke will be good. Yeah, we'll start there. We'll go with Duke.
Pretty safe bet.
That's it.
Yeah.
So Villanova is your new college basketball champion. And we'll leave college basketball right there for quite some time and move on. You're listening to My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. This is Brandon Reed, Dan Schultz, Kyle Kirby here. Time to move on to the big boys who do it pro style, the NBA, and the Golden State Warriors. What you think, Dan?
I hate my life.
Why?
Steph Curry makes me hate my life. It's unfair. It makes me not want to watch Warrior games anymore. I'm become a pouty little baby, and I'll be the first to admit it. And it's all his fault. But they are just too good, and I don't enjoy it.
I thoroughly
They are
enjoy
too
it.
good.
Yeah, I don't.
I thoroughly enjoy it, and for me, I love history. My major in college, history. So for me, this is exactly what I want to see. I love every second of it. I think it's been fantastic. I can't wait for Wednesday, and I will be one of the first people jumping off my couch celebrating with Steph Curry and Draymond Green.
I love history too, and I'm right there with you, and I'm about to lose some of my street cred, whatever street cred I had in Memphis, but I'll be honest with you, I was rooting for Golden State Saturday night because I want to see this thing as well. It'd have been a little bit different if Memphis's season hasn't gone down the way it's gone down, but I'm a realist, man. Memphis's season is over. They're going to make the playoffs, and much props to them. They got a streak going here. This is the 6th consecutive season they made the playoffs, and I wouldn't have it any other way, but they're done after that. You're going to get in, but you're looking at playing either Oklahoma City, possibly is the best scenario now, San Antonio or Golden State. So you're looking at sweep city. Get out the brooms, Memphis. Sorry, but yes, I was going for Golden State, and it just so happens that the record's going to come down to Wednesday night against Memphis, but It's in Cali. So, and with Memphis playing with a half D League squad, they're also known as the Iowa Energy as of late. But I don't see any way that Memphis beats Golden State and prevents them from that record. If they do, I'll admit that's pretty cool, but I don't see any way that's happening.
Yeah, it's sadly I can't say anything anymore. I tried to make every excuse in the book for them to not hit the record, but they will. I won't be watching. I'll be watching Kobe's final game, just to spite the Warriors. But
Well, I got to admit, Dan, you were close because here's what I didn't see happening. They beat the Spurs twice out of that period since our last podcast when we kind of redid the numbers. And I didn't see that happening. I didn't see them beating the Spurs both times.
yeah, and that to me that's huge because I know Popovich and the Spurs don't put too much into the regular season, but the fact that Golden State was able to beat them 3 times, it's just confidence when they're bound to see each other in the Western Conference Finals. The Spurs, I think, are just going to know. Listen, I mean, we might be able to steal 2 games, and the last podcast I had the Spurs winning the whole thing. And now I'm struggling to see how they can win a series against them. I'm still hopeful that they will, and maybe Tim Duncan will become 24 years old again, and that'll happen. But
he should be rested.
that's true. So I mean, we'll see, and that'll be a series I will watch, the Warriors, because I probably won't watch any other one of theirs, just because I know the outcome.
Yeah, and just to kind of keep going off of that too, I think that's the only thing we're looking forward to now, right? As far as Warriors games, after this game, it's going to be when do they face the Spurs, and just to kind of continue off on that thought too. I mean, one of the big things going into this entire week and with the end of the streak here was, well, is this going to hurt them not to get the rest that they could theoretically get now that everything is locked up? And to me, I see rest everywhere for them. I mean, they have 2 games off right now, right, from the last time they played the Spurs. 2 games off, 2 days off, I should say. They then play Memphis. Then they're going to have off for another couple of days. Then they're going to have the playoffs. They're going to sweep the Jazz or the Rockets or whoever it is they play. They're going to sweep that team. Then they're going to have more days off because then they're going to play the winner of the Clippers and Portland, which I imagine will be a longer series. So I mean, you can see the narrative that's being made here is where there's going to be plenty of opportunity for rest because they're going to be so good and they're going to beat so many teams so badly. So they're going to have these opportunities for rest. I go for this record. I didn't understand that narrative the whole time, and it's just going to be a matter of when they play San Antonio again.
Yeah, they're too young to try to shut it down and not get this record.
Right.
I mean, it's an amazing feat because if you compare really just what that '96 Bulls team was, my lord, that was a legendary team. So just to be even mentioned in the same breath with those guys would be amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're looking at Utah right now, unless the Rockets slip in there. But yeah, either way, you're looking at a sweep and a lot of time off, and probably the same thing from the Spurs aspect of it as well. So any other intriguing matchup? Let's just kind of stick with the West right now and talk about the playoffs. Do you see anything in the West that warrants a lot of your attention in the first round?
As far as playoff matchups go, not really, but I'm kind of focusing now on what those last couple teams are going to end up being. And actually today, I think it's today if I'm remembering correctly. Maybe I'm wrong. Actually, yeah, it's tonight. The Mavericks play the Jazz, and that's going to be very interesting if the Mavericks can win that game. And Houston has the Timberwolves. If Houston wins and the Mavericks win, now we got a situation where the Jazz and Houston are both tied, and Houston has a better conference record. So it's going to be interesting here just to see who gets those last couple of seeds.
Well, Houston has been such an enigma all year.
Yes.
Man, they should have been a lot better on paper than they have actually turned out to be. And man, I don't know. I don't even know if they deserve it at this point. I think they need to retool and figure out what the hell is wrong with them.
Yeah, and you got to imagine they probably want the season to be over too with all the turmoil they've had.
Yeah, I don't think they really want to play at all. The whole West matchups, nothing really excites me too much. I think the leading up until the Western Conference Finals, I think the actual most enjoyable playoff action is going to be in the East. You're going to see closer games, tighter series. So I think that's what the East will finally bring to the table. Always losing to the West or getting typically being a worse conference than the West, but they'll have some good matchups that should be good TV to watch.
I agree. One of them I'm looking forward to if it holds up this way, which it's close right now, but I kind of hope it does, is that 4 or 5 matchup between the Celtics and the Heat. I may have said it before, but if that does turn out to be the actual first-round series in the East, then I think that's going 7 games. That could be very entertaining. Not that either one of those teams really has a shot at threatening either Toronto, or Cleveland for the East. I just think that's going to be a heck of a series.
Yeah. I agree. That's exciting. Even if the Atlanta Hawks, Charlotte Hornets, if that holds true, I like Charlotte. I think they can make some noise in the playoffs. So you're going to see a lot. I see at least 2 series going 7 games in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be more of an entertaining conference there to actually see what's going to go down. But again, the story is who's going to take down Cleveland, really, and that's going to be kind of the big thing. But I mean, I this was something I wanted to at least mention, that Cleveland, the turmoil of that team has been kind of strange. No, I mean, we got a weird situation, a weird mentality, not championship caliber. But then if they're not going to be the ones to put up a fight in the finals, who is?
I like Toronto. I really do. And they're just getting DeMarre Carroll back. I know they're playing him on a minutes restriction to start. When he came back, but
he's been out several months.
I think since January. So I mean, he has the ability to limit what LeBron James does, and if he can do that, Kyrie's going to have to show me that he can make it work in the playoffs. And Kevin Love, I mean, he's a liability on defense. Basically, everybody on that team on the perimeter besides LeBron is. So you're looking at Toronto, who is fantastic on defense, adding Carroll and all that. So I think they have a legitimate chance to put the Cavs out of the...
Well, it was more than that. You called it, didn't you, Dan?
I do believe so, yes. I didn't want to admit that, but...
you had Toronto and San Antonio.
Yeah, in the most boring series ever. But, but it's possible. It might happen. All defense.
Oh, it's certainly possible. I mean, it's,
maybe not the San
lots
Antonio
of things are possible. Anymore, like Tony Romo could not break his collarbone again. That could happen. It doesn't mean it will happen.
Hey, he got it shaved off. It's all good now.
Yeah, he's got less collarbone to get in the way now. Kyle, doesn't that make sense to you? I mean, I'm not a doctor, but that makes total sense to me. I mean, he's got less collarbone to get in his way now. I mean, that's what he needed 7 years ago.
My fiance is a nurse, and I think she told me that one time when she was in school about something about that. You need more room in your actual body, because there's too much muscle there, too much skin. It's like the stuff you need.
That's a good nurse.
Yeah, I mean, there you go.
Okay, well, back up. Be on standby. That's all I gotta say.
Why are we talking about the Cowboys?
Anyway,
you can always talk
happens.
Cowboys if you guys want.
Always happens. Always goes back to the Cowboys. But anyway, I heard something kind of interesting today about Cleveland with Golden State and San Antonio doing so well. I think they're the prohibitive favorite. Whoever basically wins that Western Conference Finals is just about crowned as your NBA champion. I think everybody would agree. So does Cleveland and LeBron James, do they steal it just because there is less pressure on them now, and LeBron James is definitely not the prohibitive favorite to win it all? Is there less pressure? Will that come into play there, and could they actually steal this the World Championship this year from whoever comes out of the West?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there will be less pressure. I think there's going to be more pressure on Golden State to finish what they started this season, to repeat as champs. But at the same time, I think LeBron's going to have enough pressure of him put on himself by himself and the city of Cleveland. So Cleveland themselves will put the pressure on LeBron, even though outside maybe the nation doesn't expect it. I mean, he came there to win championships. If you don't win championships, you're Cleveland. So ultimately, I don't think it's going to have any impact where they can steal the series.
Unfortunately for Cleveland, LeBron's luck going back to Cleveland, and when it first happened, it looked great. It looked like everything was lining up for them. But his luck kind of reminds me of that of John Stockton and Karl Malone in the mid to late 90s. It's just unfortunate because they would have won championships too if it wasn't for Michael Jeffrey Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, and they denied Utah a couple of championships. And you're talking about a Hall of Fame pairing there with John Stockton and Karl Malone. And they would have had championships, at least one guaranteed, if Jordan and the Bulls didn't stand in their way. So, unfortunately for LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, we are now in the middle of this Golden State dynasty that doesn't look to be dying off anytime soon.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, right? His prime is quickly diminishing, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he decides to do, whether or not he decides to stay in Cleveland or leaves. I think that's going to be one of the bigger talking points once again.
He can't leave again, though, right?
He certainly can.
But he can't go back to Cleveland. His house in Akron will get burned to the ground by anybody in Hawaii or Ohio.
Hawaii too. They'll fly over.
It's just there's no way. That would be bad.
Listen, I agree. I totally do. I don't see how you do it. It would ruin his reputation. This is a guy. There's so much extra money to be made in the NBA just by being one of those guys. Those guys, the respected legends, and he's already got that locked up. He doesn't need another championship to have that, but
he wants to hit Michael. That's the thing.
That's the thing. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not convinced. The way that this whole season has gone on, the way that he's interacted with his teammates, and just his behavior in general has just been so strange. I don't know. I'm not convinced it will happen. I'm with you in the concept as I had to pick one way or the other. I'm going to say definitively no, he will not leave, but it would, at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me completely.
Yeah, I think he's going to try and get rid of his teammates more than him leaving. I mean, he made the mistake of wanting the team to go after Kevin Love. I mean, this is a complete off the wall thing. He should have never done that. Should have kept with Wiggins and built around those three. James, Wiggins, and Kyrie Irving. But that's for another time. But yeah, I can't see him leaving.
Well, there's also been talk lately, you guys know, of Kyrie maybe not being happy. Possibly him wanting to be the man and possibly wanting to do that someplace else. So you got chemistry issues there. You're gonna have to figure it out. It's just a shame sometimes that these guys can't figure a way to get it together because you could see a lot greater things, not just them specifically, but you've seen that from other teams. In the past, just the chemistry issues. You can't get along with this guy or that guy for one reason or another, and you should be professionals. You're making a lot of money to get out there and get along and win ball games, and it's just too bad you can't do it all the time. But I do know this: by the time we talk next time, we'll be in the middle of the playoff battles, and we'll know a lot more about where we stand. In the end of the season. Like I said before, we're that much closer to crowning an NBA champion, so can't wait. Love the playoffs. I just think we need to fast forward to that first round of the West because I don't see much happening there at all.
Yeah.
But let's move on from the NBA. You're listening to My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Brandon Reed, Kyle Kirby, Dan Schalk. And in case you didn't know, don't look now, but the MLB has started. I'm waiting for Dan.
Whoa, yeah!
Yeah.
It's my time of year. If anybody follows the site, they know I'm a big baseball guy. I follow it pretty closely, and this is my time to shine. I love sitting in front of the TV, just taking it all in. My girlfriend doesn't like it too much. Not many people can bear to watch baseball, but it's
every night.
Every night of goodness.
It's
night. Just there, and it's all. You can turn on the TV at 1:00 Eastern, and you get baseball. You can watch it all the way through 1 a.m. I mean, it's pure heaven, especially if you have the extra innings package like I do.
Oh god! So we're gonna have a new segment on My Fantasy Podcast. I want to get your girlfriend on here for a segment, and she can tell us as the season progresses how she is loving the MLB ticket package.
She creates her own curse words.
Yeah, like I said, it's every night. It's not like football. I think a lot of girlfriends and wives are patient enough to put up with football during football season if they don't like football. A lot of them do, but baseball, man, that's another animal. It is every single night for I don't know, what is it, like 8 months straight,
something like that. Yeah.
So, but it's real early in the season, of course. We're just slightly over a week from opening day, and the Baltimore Orioles are sitting on top right now of the American League at 6-0, undefeated. And they won earlier today. And a couple of teams that are just not doing so well right now is the Twins and the Braves. They are winless. And I know you got a couple of guys you want to talk about, Dan, but just generally from what you've seen from the league overall, are you surprised by the Orioles or surprised by the Braves winless? What's going on in the league in the first week that you have seen?
Yeah, I mean, the Orioles they've been pretty surprising. I know their biggest question coming in was their starting rotation and how they would handle that, but it hasn't seemed to hurt them too much. And obviously, baseball is such a long season; it's tough to take 1 week and overreact to it. But I'll tell you, if you start out hot, that helps you. If you don't start out hot, that can hurt you. And with Minnesota and Atlanta not having any wins in 6 games through, I think Atlanta kind of expected that. They're a rebuilding team, not really fit to contend for really anything this year. But Minnesota, they thought they were going to be a playoff team, and their offense, they're just not hitting the ball. So if you can't hit, you can't put runs on the board, so ultimately you don't win. So they might turn it around, but the biggest thing there is the loss of Torrey Hunter. He retired this year, so he was the lifeblood of that team, and you can see they're hurting without much leadership.
When your Vegas odds-on favorite, the Chicago Cubs, to win it all, started out pretty hot, 5-1, along with the Reds right now. Really, everybody in that division's doing pretty well. Cardinals are whooping on the Brewers. Not sure if that's over with by now, but they started out like 9-0 in the first 3 innings over the Brewers today on opening day in St. Louis. But Cubbies, 5-1. I guess they're for real and scoring a lot of runs and not giving up very many runs. Scored 42 and only given up 15 so far in 6 games. So they're looking like a playoff team, to say the least.
Yeah, and in our MLB predictions piece that a few of the baseball writers and I put together, I was the only one not to pick the Cubs to win the World Series. And they haven't won the World Series since 1908. So if 3 out of 4 people have them winning this year, they are a good team. Now, they did lose Kyle Schwarber, one of their best hitters, for the year. He tore his ACL and LCL. So that's going to impact them. But I think they have the depth, and they're a young team that has the ability to overcome that. So, yeah, I mean, they're a team to be reckoned with.
So let's talk about a rookie that's just off to an incredible start. Trevor Story, the Rockies shortstop. Dan, 7 home runs in 6 games, not to mention his first 6 games as a pro. I mean, what the hell? Is this dude that good?
Man, I didn't think so coming in. I mean, he was a top prospect in the Rockies farm system, but I don't think anybody. I mean, he has a better start than anybody ever in Major League Baseball history. I mean, that's speaking a lot. And the big thing, he wasn't even supposed to start the year with the Major League club. The only reason he's up there is because Jose Reyes is suspended. Well, he's away from the team due to a domestic violence arrest. So if that didn't happen, he wouldn't even be with the club right now. He'd still be in the minor leagues. So it's pretty impressive. 7 home runs, batting over 300 to start the year. He can hit, and in Coors Field, the altitude, you can rake out there. So it's impressive.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's something I wanted to mention, Dan. If you think if you're just hearing that 7 home runs in 6 games, and I'm telling you he plays for the Rockies, so most fans know that, but not all 6 of those games have been in Colorado. They started out at Arizona, so it's not like he's completely taking advantage of a little hot streak in some high altitude of Colorado. He hit some of those dingers in Arizona as well, and just the Rockies in general, 17 home runs in the first 6 games. That's incredible.
Yeah, they can hit. They always can. The big question is if their pitching can hold up, and usually it doesn't. So we'll see. I mean, it's a good story to start the year. So you can't complain. And And then obviously shifting to the AL, the other rookie from my Houston Astros, Tyler White. I mean, he's had a remarkable start to the year. He was a 33rd round draft pick, which in 2013, he's the first member of the Astros draft class of that year to actually make it to the big league club. And you think about that, I mean, 32 players before him were picked by that organization, and he was the first one to make it to the big league club. And he's just going off. 556 batting average, over 1,000 slugging percentage. His OPS is 1.758. I mean, all those three lead Major League Baseball. So I was shocked when he started doing this and continuing to do it game in, game out. I mean, I watch every Astros game, so he's something special, and I didn't think he was going to make it with the big league club to start the year, but I'm glad the Astros saw the capabilities of him and kept him over higher prospects.
Well, and he gets the honor of making his home debut tonight against the champs, Kansas City Royals. So, but what do you think about the Astros overall right now, Dan? That's your team. You follow them pretty heavily, 2-4
Yep.
right now, and of course, like I just said, starting a series against the champs. What's it looking like early on?
Their pitching has struggled mightily to start the year.
Yes, it has. Giving up 40 runs. In 6 games.
It's been rough. Even their ace, Dallas Keuchel, he struggled last night or yesterday against the Brewers, who really aren't a good team. He gave up a career high six walks, I believe it was, which that if anybody follows the Astros or Dallas Keuchel, the reigning Cy Young Award winner, he does not walk people. He's known for his command, and he's had 10 walks in 2 starts now. So their pitching is not performing up to where they need to be. Their offense is good. I mean, they're scoring some runs, but they need to be able to pitch better, and I think that'll come. I think their arms are still getting stretched out. A lot of them didn't fully pitch throughout spring training, so I think it'll eventually catch up. Their team is too good not to contend, but they might be a year or so away from actually competing for a World Series championship.
A long way to go. We'll see how the season plays out for them, and we're going to start getting weekly updates from Dan's girlfriend about the MLB and just how much she loves it. So we'll move on from there and close the chapter this week on the MLB. Again, we're just getting started, just a week into the season, a lot to go there, and we'll pick it up next time on My Fantasy Podcast. So you are listening to the My Fantasy Podcast, of course. Appreciate that. This is Brandon Reed alongside Dan the Man Shaw and Kyle Kirby. Now it's time for a new segment here on My Fantasy Podcast. And this is something that we may not necessarily do every single week, only when the time is warranted, when something just strikes a nerve with us and we just want to go off. Open mic time. It's called My Fantasy Rant. And I'm going to kick us off today. Kyle has one as well that he wants to go off on, but my fantasy rant today is going to be on the news that the NCAA approved a 3-year moratorium on new bowl games. You know what I got to say? Thank God. I am sick of the NCAA bowl games, okay? Just in case you didn't know, there is 125 Division I college football teams. You know how many bowl games there are currently? 41. You know what the math is? Just the simple math in my head means 82 teams make a bowl game. That's like 75% of Division I teams make some sort of postseason play. And this fits in. I'm glad this news kind of hit right after the NCAA March Madness tournament, because that's why, to me, nothing compares, no championship compares to March Madness in the field of, I still like to call it 64. It's actually 68 now, but whatever. March Madness, 64 teams get a chance to dance for the championship. And that's out of, 325 or so Division I college basketball teams. So you take a little bit better proportionate number, 64, to compete for your national championship, but we get it every year. There are Cinderellas involved, and of course your top dogs get a chance as well. But The moratorium basically comes after the NCAA. They were struggling to find teams with winning records to even fill those 41 bowl games, those postseason bowl games this year. They were looking at taking teams that were 5-7. That's one thing, but I got a problem with taking 6-6 teams. You're 500. You won half of your games. I don't care which league you played in. You only won half of your games. You ain't that good. And I know it's a money thing, and I know it's good for the schools, I guess, to end the season with a win, but like I said, you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be in postseason, especially after we talk about safety in football and trying to limit games. And why play these meaningless bowl games? I've got a list here, guys. And here's the thing, and I'm not in a huge position to talk, and I may even make some people mad because living near Jonesboro, Arkansas, Arkansas State is just had an incredible run the last several years in football, and they have played in the New Orleans Bowl, and they have played in the GoDaddy Bowl. Well, here's the thing. Some of these bowl games are so ridiculous. I circled a few here, okay? These are bowl games, folks. Tax Slayer, Belk, Armed Forces, Russell Athletic, Military, Quick Lane, St. Pete, Heart of Dallas, Pinstripe, Foster Farms, Bahamas Nassau, of course GoDaddy, Famous Idaho Potato,
Mashed
Purple, Camellia, Cure. I mean, what the hell is this? What are we even talking about? Utah beat BYU for the Royal Purple Bowl this year. If you're Utah, do you even want to go around campus holding up a Royal Purple trophy? I mean, what the hell does that even mean? Royal Purple champs here.
That trophy is dope.
Cure champs. Your Cure champs are the San Jose. They beat Georgia State this year. I don't even know what these are anymore, and that's just the thing. Let's cut out the bowl games. Now, this is a 3-year moratorium by the NCAA, so we're not looking at adding any more new bowl games for at least 3 years. I love that. Amen, I say, but I'd also like to retract some of these bowl games. I'd like to have some contraction. And to me, honestly, you could contract over half the ones I just named, and I don't think it would matter one bit. And here's the thing also, I don't watch these bowl games. No one watches these bowl games. No one even goes to these bowl games. Maybe a few 100,000 or so loyal team fans and their parents. That's about it. And we're not talking about a whole lot of money for these lower-end bowls either for the school, the winner, whatever. It's just, to me, it's ridiculous, and I'm so glad to see that the NCAA kind of agrees with me, or at least puts a halt on these new bowl games, because it was getting out of control. Like I said, 41 bowl games, 82 teams out of your 125 Division I teams make postseason play, and all you got to do is win half your games. That's BS, and that's my rant, and we'll move on to Kyle.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that, but I will try my best. Everyone knows, I think, unless you've been living under a rock, and the rock had to have been pretty big, I'm guessing everyone knows about the fact that the Masters was this past weekend, and we witnessed one of the biggest collapses in the history of major golf, and it was pretty sad thing to see. I'm a fan of Jordan Spieth. Let me get that out of the way first. I think he's an amazing golfer. Let's remember this kid's only 22 years old. Very important thing to remember about him. He's still very young, younger than all of us here, younger than most people probably listening. And the truth of the matter is that I want to get something very clear. I've seen a lot of negative things to say about Jordan and message boards and a couple of other places. You know what? Let's get this straight. This kid has been one of the most consistently great, not good, great golfers in major championships, in major championship golf in general. I believe he's still ranked second overall in the entire world. Probably would be higher than that after the poor performance from Jason Day and Rory McIlroy after this past weekend. When I say consistent, I mean it. And he's been extremely good at the Masters, which is consistently one of the most difficult golf courses in Augusta, Georgia, to actually play at. And what happened there? It's again, I'll go over it quickly. I mean, coming out of the back nine on the final Sunday there, the front nine, I should say, the final Sunday, he had a 5-shot lead over Danny Willett and a couple less shots over some of the other guys. Going into the 10th, 11th, and 12th hole, two par 4s, 10 and 11, both bogeyed. And then the infamous 12th hole, he put his first shot in the water, to get himself already now in a 2-shot deficit. Took another shot. That shot found the water again. That shot didn't even make it halfway or a quarter over the actual stream there. It didn't. He chunked it. Anyone who plays golf knows what that means. Anyone who plays golf knows how hard golf is. Golf is really, really hard, and it's especially hard when you have something going on in your mind, like he clearly did. To put the first shot in the water like that after playing so well the entire tournament, it got to him. And we've never seen anything get to him. That's the thing I want to make very clear here. Nothing has ever gotten to this kid. He has been very, very bulletproof to anything that could possibly rattle golfers. I mean, you just see the way he stands over some putts and just drains them like a champ. I mean, reminds me of Tiger. The way that he used to be able to pull out his putter and just make magic happen. But yeah, right. And it's the type of things. It's just like I said. It's the clutchness that he has, and he didn't have it this weekend. He didn't. He lost it when it mattered the most. And he never got it back. I mean, just to go a little bit further, one of the things that's going to be forgotten, and again, I'm going to go back to this whole thing being in his head, going into the final 3 holes of the actual round that he had there. He needed 2 birdies in order to tie Danny Willett, who had already finished his actual round. And he had an opportunity, a really good one at 16, where a lot of hole-in-ones has happened earlier in the day. And he put too much on it. It pushed it right past the actual cup, and he did not make it. And from that point forward, it was over. He wasn't going to get 2 birdies in the final 2 holes. But again, it just goes to show you what type of sport this is. Golf is such an incredibly difficult game to be good at, and it's even more difficult to be excellent at. Jordan Spieth is an excellent golfer. He had a bad 3-hole stretch, literally a 3-hole stretch. That's all it really came down to, were those 3 holes. And it happens to the best of us, and it happened to him. And he will bounce back from this. I have all the faith in the world that this kid will be one of the best all-time golfers that we've ever seen. Just again, let's take it easy on him, because what we saw is an anomaly. It's a flash in the pan. It's not going to be what we're going to remember this kid for in the long term.
And that is my fantasy rant. Kyle Kirby telling you exactly how he feels about Jordan Spieth, and I agree. He's a young guy, and up until that point, he has played completely under control. Didn't seem to get phased, and we're going to see him a lot more in the future. I really believe that. It was Roy McIlroy a couple years ago.
Yep. He
seemed to kind of fade, but this kid Spieth, man, he just seems to has it, because since he broke on the scene, he's always there now. He is always there. He is right there. And also want to give out a shout out to Lee Westwood. Man, I love Lee Westwood. I've picked him so many times, and he's always there too. But he has to be setting a record for like top 3, 4, 5 finishes and not winning a damn thing. He's always
he's
there,
consistently been one of those guys. He's like Sergio Garcia. He's one of those guys who has been really good for a while, except Sergio's never really there at the end on Sunday. He has like really good rounds and never quite gets there. Lee always does get there. And just to comment on this again real quick, I do want to make sure that it's known how well Danny Willett actually played. For those who don't know the story behind him, or at least what happened to him leading up to this week, his wife actually gave birth to their first child about a week or so before the first round on Thursday. I think it was the previous Tuesday. So about 9 days from the actual first day of the actual Masters. He was, from what I understand, the last player in the field to actually declare for the Masters. Almost didn't come. She ended up giving birth, so he ended up coming. Ranked 12th overall in the world. He's no scrub, and just a bogey-free Sunday. He finished 5 under par on Sunday, and this is with no bogeys and no eagles either. So this is just solid play from him. Make no mistake, Jordan Spieth lost the Masters this weekend. That's what happened. Jordan Spieth lost the Masters. Danny Willett deserved to win because he played extremely well, but Jordan Spieth lost. And again, this is going to be very interesting to see how he bounces back from this one.
Danny Shaw. What do you? What was your final impression?
Yeah, I mean, it was sad to see that happen to Spieth. Nothing but respect for him. The way he handled it after, putting the green jacket on Willett. I think that's.
Oh yeah, that was awkward.
That was
But
tough.
it speaks to his class. I mean, he did the best he could do in that situation. I mean, I would have been back pounding beers, crying myself to sleep if that happened to me. So it's you respect him for it, and Willett, as soon as he won, I started doing more research on him. I mean, the guy can play. He's a good golfer. You might not have heard of him, but like you said, Kyle, 12th in the world. He won at Dubai. He had I think he came in 6th last year at the British Open. So I mean, the guy is a good golfer, and he's young, so he's only going to be able to continue to get better. And I think you're going to start to see him compete in more tournaments and become more well known. So I think this is a kickoff to Willett's career as well.
Yeah, second Englishman in history to win the Masters too.
So how you like that from myfantasysportstalk.com, and we've got a couple of good Masters pieces up right now. Check out the site. John Richardson has one as well. Jordan Spieth figuratively and literally gives the green jacket to Danny Willett. Man, that was tough. And then also Malachi David has a Masters piece up as well. A lot of stuff going on the website. Kevin McQuaid's Man Crush Monday was today. Check it out, because this is probably going to be the last time it's ever going to be this guy. It is Kobe Bryant today, so I encourage you to check out the site and everything that's going on. Dan, what else is going on the site right now in the world of My Fantasy Sports?
We had a busy day today. I think close to 20 articles published. Kyle can speak to his Game of Thrones pieces. I know that's going to be it's a pretty it's a popular show. It's going to be starting. I think Kyle can tell you when it exactly starts, but his pieces are doing really well. If you haven't watched it, or you need to catch up, you got to read Kyle's Game of Thrones pieces, because he's doing a fantastic job, and the readers are really enjoying them.
Get your number 2 pencils out, people, because we're going to class again. Right. Yeah, no, it's been fun to write those, and it's coming back a week from this upcoming Sunday. So I'm dying a little bit more each day inside, having to wait. Even one more day is difficult, but I'm excited, and I can't wait to start writing about the show once it actually premieres again.
Game of Thrones, and also, of course, tonight is WWE Raw, so look forward to that from Kyle Kirby. You're very enthusiastic based on what we've seen lately. I guess you're just very optimistic. Is that?
Yeah, there's plenty of baseball games on, guys. Just so you know, too. Astros are leading 3-0 over the Royals in the second inning. Just an update for those fans out there.
Goes mild.
So much information in sports and entertainment. Plus, we're giving you live updates of Astro scores on My Fantasy Podcast. That's where we're going to leave it for this week's edition. Thanks so much for listening. Check us out on iTunes, SoundCloud. Subscribe to the podcast. Don't miss any of it. And also listen to the Book That podcast. Kyle's going to be bringing you another edition of that after Raw this week, so check it out. Subscribe to them all. For Dan Shaw and Kyle Kirby, this is Brandon Reed. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
MyFantasySportsTalk.com